Welcome back to the Marching to Madness College Basketball Podcast. For today, we have the new head coach of the Wichita State Shockers, Coach Paul Mills. He comes over from Oral Roberts, where he took the Titans back into the Sweet 16 in 2020. And this was the second time in history that a 15 seed had gotten that far. Coach, welcome.
Ken, thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh, yeah, thank you as well. Hey, I read an interesting story where you talk about prioritizing people. And I'm thinking about, everybody around the program with your players and staff, I guess, first on my mind. So what are your thoughts in helping kids to grow outside of the game and then helping your staff ascertain themselves inside the game?
Yeah, I mean, players growing outside the game is pretty significant. It's ultra important. If all we're doing is making this about a 12-ounce rubber ball, we are failing these guys. And I saw a statistic recently where 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs played college sports. And so what happens is you learn some things playing college sports. You learn resiliency. You learn about the importance of preparation. You understand the work ethic that's involved in order to do well in your particular field. There's a number of values that you're taking away. And so if all we're doing is talking about a ball and how to move with the ball, eventually the average NBA career, and I know you follow the NBA really well, the average NBA career is 4.2 years. So let's say you go in at 22, it's over with at 26. And if only lessons that they ever received was only know what to do when the ball is moving this way, offensively and defensively, we failed these guys. And we're there, whatever the parents have instilled in those young men, we need to not reinstill it, but reinforce it. And it's usually their first time of independence. And we need to make sure that accountability is a priority. We need to make sure humility is a priority. And I would tell you that all of those things are important for players, but they're also important for staffs because you have to model that stuff. You can't talk about making sure you do what you say you're going to do and then a coach show up late. And so all of that stuff has to be modeled. It's why it's important for the staff. It's why it's important for players. And as I share with the players, as I share with the staff, me included, the better you get, the better the team gets. The better a leader gets, the better the organization gets. So we all should be striving in a way to develop off the court as much as we pay attention to it on it.
Wichita State has a tremendous basketball history. What are some keys about building the Shockers back into those positions we mentioned, the Final Four and undefeated regular season, and then making a move into that Sweet 16?
Yeah, well, elevators don't get to the penthouse immediately. So there are elevators to this. There are levels to this in which we have to climb. And so, the first goal is we need to make sure the right people are here. Rudy Tomjanovich, I grew up in Houston and lived next to the Rockets practice facility. And I remember Rudy Tomjanovich, the Hall of Fame coach, told me one day, he said, Paul, the goal is not to assemble talent. It's to assemble a team. And so through this whole process, we're just not here to, hey, let's just go get talented guys and keep our fingers crossed and hope this works. We need to assemble a team. And as we assemble a team, we'll be competitive in a phenomenal conference that has represented well, not only in the NCAA tournament side, but on the NBA side. So you understand the caliber of player that's required in order to be competitive in this league. And I think as those things happen, you're going to begin to see this elevator cliche that I spoke about earlier. level
Mm.
up each time. And programs that I've been a part of, whether it was at Baylor or whether it was at Oral Roberts, we got better over time. And we'll see where we're at. We have a chance to take this group to Greece at the beginning of August. So we'll get an idea about where we're at. And then we have a really tough non-conference schedule that will prepare us well. So we'll get a really good idea about the things we need to do in order to put ourselves in a position to make an NCAA tournament.
One of the stories I read talked about your relationship with Rudy Tomjanovich and the Rockets. I was curious how that helped you kind of push your position, or push toward being, a head coach at a high level program.
Yeah, I would tell you that it was probably more observatory than anything else. I mean, I don't
Mm.
have Coach Tom Janovich's cell phone or anything, but I mean, those guys would let me in the practice facility. And so, you saw Charles Barkley, you saw
Oh
Scottie
yeah,
Pippen, you saw Akeem Olajuwon. And I also grew up in Houston during the Phi Slamma Jamma days.
oh
So
yeah.
I mean, there was really good college basketball going on where I grew up, and the NBA side, those guys were doing really well. John Lucas, who's an assistant with the Rockets and was the first pick in the NBA draft in the 70s, he's a friend. And so
Mhm.
to just observe basketball and listen to those guys, whether it be coaches or whether it be players, I was able to take a lot from it and learn a lot through those conversations. But for me, I grew up poor, and I just wanted to help kids get the most out of their abilities because I did think that academics offered this kind of opportunity to kind of change the trajectory of where a lot of poor kids end up.
Definitely. It's a good point. Now I looked at your roster. Kenny Poto is your leading returning scorer there with the Shockers. Started 30 games last season and improved his game across the boards statistically. He even shot 49% from the floor.
Yeah, I think averaging 9 and 6 as a sophomore in
Mhm.
this conference is really good. I would
Mhm.
expect that he's got even better numbers coming out, and he's a terrific player. I think anytime that I talk to people in the AAC, they comment about how good Kenny is, and Kenny's a good player, has a ton of versatility, can be on the perimeter, shot it better from three as a freshman than he did a year ago. And so we're trying to get him back to, those freshman numbers to where he shot it. And I think that he'll be more of a focal point offensively. I mean, Craig Porter obviously was a really good player here in all conference. That's why he's with the Cleveland Cavaliers now. But I think Kenny will be in a position here to really assert himself and showcase his abilities, and excited that he chose to remain a Shocker.
I always look at the transfers that come in anymore with the kids, coming out of high school. And I see Harlan Beverly from Miami and Oklahoma transfer beyond Cortez. Discuss what they're going to bring to Wichita State and the big keys again on and off the floor.
Yeah, Harlan Beverly was a really good high school player, one of the tops in the
Mhm.
country, and just is battled injuries during his time at Miami. And then last year when he got cleared, it wasn't until September the 1st, but played behind Nigel Pack and Wong. I mean, they were Miami was really good, obviously a Final Four team, but he contributed and is a menace defensively and can really cause problems on each side of the court. Bijan Cortez played 17 minutes a game at Oklahoma, shot 48% from three. He has Big 12 experience. I watched him in Oklahoma win as a high school player, won multiple state championships, and probably would have won another had it not been for COVID. But having
Mhm.
watched him and his progress, he's been really impressive during his time here. Harlan has been great. And so to have guys that have been around high level programs, and obviously Harlan experiencing high level basketball and advancing in the NCAA tournament. Those things will help, not only from an educational standpoint to our players about what it takes, simply because they've done it, but also from the experience standpoint, because both of those guys are very experienced in really good basketball conferences.
You know, the transfer portal and the NIL have become two major themes, I guess, in college sports. What is your philosophy with the transfer portal on how you study players? You fit them into the right group together for your team. It's almost like it's going to be a different roster almost every year for some teams.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is obviously for some teams. I still think that the best way to get better is retention. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to retain your guys. In order to retain your guys, they have to know that they can be successful where you're at. So I think all of that plays a part. You know, can you add a piece here or there? But if you're trying to reconstruct an entire team via the portal, that's going to be tough. There's some teams that are just forced to do it because they had a number of guys who went on to the NBA or had some seniors, and so there are situations that are going to require that, but require that. But my good friend Jerome Tang did a remarkable job a year ago, just adding
Awesome.
11 new players during that process, and was able to get the right ones. And so I go back to my earlier comment. You're not here to assemble a team and just accumulate talent. You're here to assemble a team. And I think you always have to be mindful of that as you think through this process.
You assembled some really good teams at ORU. They I think went to the NCAA tournament two times in your last three seasons.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, building ORU to the level where they get to the Sweet 16, and we mentioned they were the second 15 seed in history to do that on the second weekend. How did you get the players to buy in? I mean, they had talent, but they had to believe when they beat Ohio State and Florida.
Yeah, I mean, they were good players. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you often talk about having a game for March. What does a game for March look like? And, at that particular time, our staff had been a part of 81 NCAA games. I had gone to four Sweet 16s as having done it at Baylor and been with those guys, and, went to multiple Elite Eights during my time as well. And so you kind of saw what it took in order to advance. But I mean, you're going to have to make clutch plays. You're going to have to make some free throws, and you understand the importance of one possession games, because that's what usually these games are in March. So I think players needed to understand what a game for March actually looks like. A lot of teams have games, but do you have a game that can actually translate to winning in March? And we just had a group of guys that understood the importance of being efficient on both ends, offensively and defensively. And then we were able to make some plays late, and make some key stops, and obviously make free throws down the stretch. But that whole process is about, I don't score a bucket, I don't get a rebound, I do not make a free throw. That is all about the players. And those players believed, and I had a great group of guys who were bought in from day one. And so I didn't have to do much. And a year ago we finished right outside the top 25. We were we finished 26th in the AP poll. But for a school like ORU, that's a heck of an achievement, and really good players who put in the work. But I had a group of guys who really, really believed, and that's what you're trying to instill anywhere.
Coach, you spent 14 seasons with Coach Scott Drew there at Baylor. And of course, Kansas State head coach Jerome Tang on that staff as well. How did Coach Drew and Coach Tang become influences for you at this level?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to those guys frequently, quite often. They're friends. I mean, outside of my mom and dad, I spent 1/3 of my life with those guys, and you're with them every single day. And so to spend 14 years with somebody, those two guys specifically, and then Grant McCaslin, who's now the head coach at Texas Tech, and Grant was with us for 5 years, and Matthew Driscoll, who's the head coach at North
Good
Florida, was with
friend.
us for 6. Yeah. And I was just around really good guys. Was around Kim Mulkey every day, and she was coming through the offices, and you're able to watch her practices. So I was around really good people, and the great thing about Scott is he would often tell us many hands make light work, and he would get us involved in everything. And so it wasn't a big shock when I became a head coach that I was overwhelmed with stuff, because he kept us very involved in from everything from scheduling to tutoring sessions for players and how to schedule that. So whatever it wasn't anything that he never micromanaged us. He gave us a lot of autonomy, and we were able to learn from some really good people, and then eventually get our own programs and implement the vision that we foresaw about what our particular team looked like.
Last thing, Coach, Tuesday night, the fans came in and met the players and staff. I thought
Yeah,
that was really cool way to do things, in your first season. It gets
yeah.
them involved in the Shockers right away out of the quote unquote regular season. Talk about bringing those fans in and then them being able to meet players and, coaches and yourself.
Yeah, it's important. There is no NBA team here in Kansas. So people
Yeah.
support the Jayhawks or the Wildcats, and Wichita is the largest city in the state of Kansas. So I can promise you the Shockers are supported. There were 243 consecutive games of more than 10,000 here before COVID happened, and people are used to winning around Wichita. And so to acknowledge these people, to acknowledge fans, to acknowledge supporters, for them to get a up close opportunity with players, to show them that we're regular people, and we're excited about representing you, and we understand the privilege of that. People want to see good teams, and teams are families, right? You want to see families that work well. You want to see organizations that work well. We know that being in Wichita, they want to see a team be a team and represent them. And so that's great to be able to do that in June. I don't know of many places that are able to do that, to draw that kind of support at this particular time of year. But Shocker Nation's pretty passionate about Wichita State basketball.
Coach Paul Mills, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be looking forward to watching those Shockers play here as the season rolls around up in November. Coach, it's a pleasure having you on here, and I hope we can do this again at some point.
Ken, thank you. Really a privilege. I greatly appreciate all you do for promoting these student athletes in college basketball. Thank you.